The 23rd Book of the Odysseys of Homer. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Phil Schempf. The 23rd Book of the Odysseys of Homer. Translated by George Chapman. The Argument. Ulysses to his wife is known. A brief sum of his travels shown. Himself, his son, and servants go to approve the wooer's overthrow. Another argument. Sigh. For all a noise sustained before, the true wife's joys now made the more. The servants thus informed, the matron goes up where the queen was cast in such repose, affected with a fervent joy to tell what all this time she did with pain conceal. Her knees revoked their first strength, and her feet were borne above the ground with wings to greet the long-grieved queen with news her king was come. And near her said, "Wake, leave this withdrawn room, that now your eyes may see at length, though late, the man returned, which all the heavy date your woes have racked out, you have longed to see. Ulysses is come home, and hath set free his court of all your wooers, slaughtering all for wasting so his goods with festival, his house so vexing, and for violence done so always varied to his only son." She answered her, "The gods have made thee mad, of whose power now thy powers such proof have had. The gods can blind with folly's wisest eyes, and make men foolish so to make them wise. For they have hurt even thy grave brain, that bore an understanding spirit heretofore. Why hast thou waked me to more tears, when moan hath turned my mind with tears into her own? Thy madness much more blameful, that with lies thy haste is laden, and both robs mine eyes of most delightsome sleep, and sleep of them, that now had bound me in his sweet extreme, to embrace my lids and close my visual spheres. I have not slept so much this 20 years, since first my dearest sleeping mate was gone, for that too ill to speak of Ilion. Hence take your mad steps back. If any maid of all my train besides a part had played so bold to wake, and tell mine ears such lies, I had return'd her to her housewiferys with good proof of my wrath to such rude dames. But go, your years have saved their younger blames." She answered her, "I nothing wrong your ear, but tell the truth. Your long-miss'd lord is here, and, with the wooer's slaughter, his own hand, in chief exploit, hath to his own command reduced his house, and that poor guest was he, that all those wooers wrought such injury. Telemachus had knowledge, long ago, that 'twas his father, but his wisdom so observed his counsels, to give surer end to that great work to which they did contend." This called her spirits to their conceiving places. She sprung for joy from blames into embraces of her grave nurse, wiped every tear away from her fair cheeks, and then began to say what nurse said over thus: "O nurse, can this be true thou say'st? How could that hand of his alone destroy so many? They would still troop all together. How could he then kill such numbers so united?" "How," said she, "I have not seen nor heard, but certainly the deed is done. We sat within in fear, the doors shut to us, and from thence might hear the sighs and groans of every man he slew, but heard nor saw more, till at length there flew your son's voice to mine ear, that called to me, and bade me then come forth, and then I see Ulysses standing in the midst of all your slaughter'd wooers, heaped up like a wall, one on another, round about his side. It would have done you good to have descried your conqu'ring lord all smear'd with blood and gore so like a lion. Straight then off they bore the slaughter'd carcasses, that now before the forecourt gates lie, one on another piled, and now your victor all the hall, defiled with stench of hot death, is perfuming round, and with a mighty fire the hearth hath crowned. Thus all the death removed, and every room made sweet and sightly, that yourself should come, his pleasure sent me. Come then, take you now your mutual fills of comfort. Grief on you hath long and many sufferings laid. which length, with many sufferings, now your virtuous strength of uncorrupted chasteness hath conferr'd a happy end to. He that long hath err'd is safe arrived at home, his wife, his son, found safe and good. All ill that hath been done on all the doers' heads, though long prolong'd, his right hath wreaked, and in the place they wrong'd. She answer'd, Do not you now laugh and boast as you had done some great act, seeing most into his being, for you know he won, even through his poor and vile condition, a kind of prompted thought that there was placed some virtue in him fit to be embraced by all the house, but most of all by me, and by my son that was the progeny of both our loves. And yet it is not he, for all the likely proofs ye plead to me. Some God hath slain the Wooers, in disdain of the abhorred pride he saw so reign in those base works they did. No man alive, or good or bad, whoever did arrive at their abodes once, ever could obtain regard of them, and therefore their so vain and vile deserts have found as vile an end. But, for Ulysses, never will extend his wish'd return to Greece, nor he yet lives. How strange a queen you are, said she, that gives no truth your credit, that your husband, set close in his house at fire, can purchase yet no faith of you, but that he still is far from any home of his. Your wits at war with all credulity ever. And yet now, I'll name a sign shall force belief from you. I bathed him lately, and beheld the scar that still remains a mark too ocular to leave your heart yet blinded. And I then had run and told you, but his hand was fain to close my lips from the acclamation my heart was breathing, and his wisdom won my still retention, till he gave me leave and charge to tell you this. Now then receive my life for gage of his return, which take in any cruel fashion, if I make all this not clear to you. Love nurse, said she, though many things thou know'st, yet these things be veil'd in the counsels the uncreated Gods have long time mask'd in, whose dark periods 'tis hard for thee to see into. But come, let's see my son, the slain, and him by whom they had their slaughter. This said, down they went, when on the Queen's part divers thoughts were spent. If, all this given no faith, she still should stand aloof, and question more, or his hugg'd hand and loved head she should at first assay with free given kisses. When her doubtful way had passed the stony pavement, she took seat against her husband, in the opposite heat the fire then cast upon the other wall. Himself set by the column of the hall, his looks cast downwards, and expected still when her incredulous and curious will to shun ridiculous air, and the shame to kiss a husband that was not the same, would down, and win enough faith from his sight. She silent sat, and her perplexed plight amaze encounter'd. Sometimes she stood clear he was her husband. Sometimes the ill wear his person had put on transform'd him so that yet his stamp would hardly current go. Her son, her strangeness seeing, blam'd her thus: Mother, ungentle mother, tyrannous, is this too curious modesty to show? Why sit you from my father, nor bestow a word on me to enquire and clear such doubt as may perplex you? Found man ever out one other such a wife that could forbear her lov'd lord's welcome home, when 20 year in infinite suff'rance he had spent apart? No flint so hard is as a woman's heart. Son, said she, amaze contains my mind, nor can I speak and use the common kind of those inquiries, nor sustain to see with opposite looks his countenance. If this be my true Ulysses now return'd, there are tokens betwixt us of more fitness far to give me argument he is my lord, and my assurance of him may afford my proofs of joy for him from all these eyes with more decorum than object their guise to public notice. The much sufferer brake in laughter out, and to his son said, Take your mother from the priest, that she may make her own proofs of me, which perhaps may give more cause to the acknowledgments that drive their show thus off. But now, because I go so poorly clad, she takes disdain to know so loath'd a creature for her loved lord. Let us consult then how we may accord the town to our late action. Some one slain hath made the all left slaughterer of him fain to fly his friends and country. But our swords have slain a city's most supportful lords, the chief peers of the kingdom. Therefore see you use wise means to uphold your victory." "See you to that, good father," said the son, "whose counsels have the sovereign glory won from all men living. None will strive with you, but with unquestioned girlands grace your brow, to whom our whole alacrities we vow in free attendance. Nor shall our hands leave your onsets needy of supplies to give all the effects that in our powers can fall." "Then this," said he, "to me seems capital of all choice courses. Bathe we first, and then attire we freshly, all our maids and men enjoining likewise to their best attire. The sacred singer then let touch his lyre, and go before us all in graceful dance, that all without, to whose ears shall advance our cheerful accents, or of travellers by, or firm inhabitants, solemnity of frolic nuptials may imagine here. And this perform we, lest the massacre of all our wooers be divulged about the ample city, ere ourselves get out and greet my father in his grove of trees, whereafter we will prove what policies Olympius shall suggest to overcome our latest toils, and crown our welcome home." This all obeyed, bathed, put on fresh attire, both men and women did. Then took his lyre the holy singer, and set thirst on fire with songs and faultless dances. All the court rung with the footings that the numerous sport from jocund men drew and fair girdled dames, which heard abroad thus flew the common fames: "This sure the day is when the much woo'd queen is richly wed. O wretch, that hath not been so constant as to keep her ample house till the utmost hour had brought her foremost spouse." Thus some conceiv'd, but little knew the thing. And now Eurynomé had bath'd the king, smooth'd him with oils, and he himself attir'd in vestures royal. Her part then inspir'd the Goddess Pallas, deck'd his head and face with infinite beauties, gave a goodly grace of stature to him, a much plumper plight through all his body breath'd, curls soft and bright adorn'd his head withal, and made it show as if the flowery hyacinth did grow in all his pride there, in the general trim of every lock and every curious limb. Look how a skilful artisan, well seen in all arts metalline, as having been taught by Minerva and the God of Fire, doth gold with silver mix so that entire they keep their self distinction, and yet so that to the silver from the gold doth flow a much more artificial lustre than his own, and thereby to the gold itself is grown a greater glory than if wrought alone, both being struck off by either's miction. So did Minerva hers and his combine, he more in her, she more in him did shine. Like an immortal from the bath he rose, and to his wife did all his grace dispose, encountering this her strangeness: "Cruel dame of all that breathe, the Gods past steel and flame have made thee ruthless. Life retains not one of all dames else that bears so overgrown a mind with abstinence, as 20 years to miss her husband drown'd in woes and tears, and at his coming keep aloof, and fare as of his so long absence, and his care no sense had seiz'd her. Go, nurse, make a bed that I alone may sleep. Her heart is dead to all reflection." To him thus replied the wise Penelope: "Man half deified, 'tis not my fashion to be taken straight with bravest men, nor poorest use to slight. Your mean appearance made not me retire, Nor this your rich show makes me now admire, Nor moves at all, for what is all to me If not my husband? All this certainty I knew at parting; but, so long apart, The outward likeness holds no full desert For me to trust to. Go, nurse, see address'd A soft bed for him, and the single rest Himself affects so. Let it be the bed That stands within our bridal chamber stead, Which he himself made. Bring it forth from thence, And see it furnish'd with magnificence." This said she to assay him, and did stir Ev'n his establish'd patience, and to her whom thus he answer'd: "Woman, your words prove my patience strangely. Who is it can move my bed out of his place? It shall oppress earth's greatest understander, and, unless even God himself come, that can easily grace men in their most skills, it shall hold his place. For man he lives not, that, as not most skill'd, so not most young, shall easily make it yield, if building on the strength in which he flows, he adds both levers to and iron crows. For in the fixture of the bed is shown a masterpiece, a wonder, and 'twas done by me, and none but me, and thus was wrought. There was an olive tree, that had his grot amidst a hedge, and was of shadow proud, fresh, and the prime age of his verdure show'd, his leaves and arms so thick, that to the eye it show'd a column for solidity. To this I had a comprehension to build my bridal bower, which all of stone, thick as the tree of leaves, I raised, and cast a roof about it, nothing meanly graced, put glued doors to it, that oped art enough, then from the olive every broad‐leaved bough I lopped away, then felled the tree, and then went over it both with my axe and plane, both governed by my line, and then I hewed my curious bedstead out, in which I shewed work of no common hand. All this begun, I could not leave till to perfection my pains had brought it, took my wimble, bored the holes as fitted, and did last afford the varied ornament, which showed no want of silver, gold, and polish'd elephant. An ox hide dyed in purple then I threw above the cords, and thus to curious view I hope I have objected honest sign to prove I author naught that is not mine. But if my bed stand unremov'd or no, O woman, passeth human wit to know. This sunk her knees and heart, to hear so true the signs she urg'd, and first did tears ensue her rapt assurance, then she ran and spread her arms about his neck, kiss'd oft his head, and thus the curious stay she made excus'd. Ulysses, be not angry that I use such strange delays to this, since heretofore your suffering wisdom hath the garland wore from all that breathe, and 'tis the Gods that, thus with mutual miss so long afflicting us, have caused my coyness, to our youths envied that wish society that should have tied our youths and years together. And since now judgment and duty should our age allow as full joys therein as in youth and blood, see all young anger and reproof withstood for not at first sight giving up my arms, my heart still trembling lest the false alarms that words oft strike up should ridiculize me. Had Argive Helen known credulity would bring such plagues with it, and her again, as authoress of them all, with that foul stain to her and to her country, she had stayed her love and mixture from a stranger's bed. But God impelled her to a shameless deed, because she had not in herself decreed, before the attempt, that such acts still were shent as simply in themselves as in the event by which not only she herself sustains, but we, for her fault, have paid mutual pains. Yet now, since these signs of our certain bed you have discovered and distinguished from all earth's others, no one man but you yet ever getting of it the only show, nor one of all dames but myself and she my father gave, old Actor's progeny, who ever guarded to ourselves the door of that thick‐shaded chamber, I no more will cross your clear persuasion, though till now I stood too doubtful and austere to you. These words of hers, so justifying her stay, did more desire of joyful moan convey to his glad mind than if at an instant's sight she had allowed him all his wishes right. He wept for joy, to enjoy a wife so fit for his grave mind, that knew his depth of wit, and held chaste virtue at a price so high. And as sad men at sea, when shore is nigh, which long their hearts have wish'd, their ship quite lost by Neptune's rigour, and they vex'd and tossed, 'twixt winds and black waves, swimming for their lives, a few escaped, and that few that survives, all drench'd in foam and brine, crawl up to land, with joy as much as they did worlds command. So dear to his wife was her husband's sight, who still embraced his neck, and had, till light displayed her silver ensign, if the dame, that bears the blue sky intermixed with flame in her fair eyes, had not infixed her thought on other joys, for loves so hardly brought to longed‐for meeting, who the extended night withheld in long date, nor would let the light her winged hoof horse join, Lampus, Phaeton, those ever-colts that bring the morning on to worldly men, but in her golden chair down to the ocean by her silver hair bound her aspirings. Then Ulysses said, O wife, nor yet are my contentions stayed. A most unmeasured labour, long and hard, asks more performance. To it being prepared by grave Tiresias, when down to hell I made dark passage, that his skill might tell my men's return and mine. But come, and now enjoy the sweet rest that our fates allow. The place of rest is ready, she replied, your will at full service, since the deified have brought you where your right is to command. But since you know, God making understand your searching mind, inform me what must be your last set labour, since 'twill fall to me, I hope, to hear it after. Tell me now. The greatest pleasure is before to know. Unhappy, said Ulysses, to what end importune you this labour? It will lend nor you nor me delight. But you shall know I was commanded yet more to bestow my years in travel, many cities more by sea to visit, and when first for shore I left my shipping, I was willed to take a naval oar in hand, and with it make my passage forth, till such strange men I met as knew no sea, nor ever salt did eat with any victuals, who the purple beaks of ships did never see, nor that which breaks the waves in curls, which is a fan-like oar, and serves as wings with which a ship doth soar. To let me know then, when I was arrived on that strange earth where such a people lived, he gave me this for an unfailing sign. When any one that took that oar of mine, borne on my shoulder, for a corn-cleansed fan, I met ashore, and showed to be a man of that land's labour, there had I command to fix mine oar, and offer on that strand t' imperial Neptune, whom I must implore, a lamb, a bull, and a sow ascending boar, and then turn home, where all the other gods that in the broad heaven made secure abodes I must solicit, all my curious heed given to the several rites they have decreed, with holy hecatombs, and then at home a gentle death should seize me that would come from out the sea, and take me to his rest in full ripe age, about me living blest my loving people, to which he presaged the sequel of my fortunes were engaged. If then, said she, the gods will please to impose a happier being to your fortune's close than went before, your hope gives comfort strength that life shall lend you better days at length. While this discourse spent mutual speech, the bed Eurynomé nurse had made, and spread with richest furniture, while torches spent their parcel gilt thereon. To bed then went the aged nurse, and, where their sovereigns were, Eurynomé, the chambermaid, did bear a torch, and went before them to their rest, to which she left them, and for hers addressed. The king and queen then now, as newly wed, resumed the old laws of the embracing bed. Telemachus and both his herdsmen then dissolved the dances both to maids and men, who in their shady roofs took timely sleep. The bride and bridegroom having ceased to keep observéd love-joys, from their fit delight they turned to talk. The queen then did recite what she had suffered by the hateful rout of harmful wooers, who had eat her out so many oxen and so many sheep, how many tun of wine their drinking deep had quite exhausted. Great Ulysses then, whatever slaughters he had made of men, whatever sorrows he himself sustained, repeated amply, and her ears remained with all delight attentive to their end, nor would one wink sleep till he told her all, beginning where he gave the Cicons fall, from thence his pass to the Lotophagi, the Cyclops' acts, the putting out his eye, and the wreak of all the soldiers he had eat, no less ruth shown to all they could entreat, his way to Æolus, his prompt receipt and kind dismission, his enforced retreat by sudden tempest to the fishy main, and quite distraction from his course again, his landing at the Læstrygonian port, where ships and men in miserable sort met all their spoils, his ship and he alone got off from the abhorr'd confusion, his pass to Circe, her deceits and arts, his thence descension to the infernal parts, his life's course of the Theban prophet learned, where all the slaughter'd Grecians he discerned, and loved mother, his astonish'd ear with what the Sirens' voices made him hear, His scape from the erring rocks, with Scylla was, and rough Charybdis, with the dangerous pass of all that touched there, his Sicilian offence given to the sun, his every man destroyed by thunder volleyed out of heaven, that split his ship, his own endeavours driven to shift for succours on the Ogygian shore, where nymph Calypso such affection bore to him in his arrival, that with feast she kept him in her caves, and would have blessed his welcome life with an immortal state would he have stayed, and lived her nuptial mate, all which she never could persuade him to. His pass to the Phæacians spent in woe, their hearty welcome of him, as he were a god descended from the starry sphere, their kind dismission of him home with gold, brass, garments, all things his occasions would. This last word used, sleep seized his weary eye, that salves all care to all mortality. In mean space Pallas entertained intent that when Ulysses thought enough time spent in love joys with his wife, to raise the day and make his grave occasions call away. The morning rose, and he, when thus he said, "O Queen, now satiate with afflictions laid on both our bosoms, you oppressed here with cares for my return, I everywhere by Jove and all the deities tossed, even till all our hope of my return was lost, and both arrived at this sweet haven, our bed, be your care used, to see administred my house possessions left. Those sheep that were consum'd in surfeits by your wooers here, I'll forage to supply with some, and more the suff'ring Grecians shall be made restore, even till our stalls receive their wonted fill. And now, to comfort my good father's ill long suffer'd for me, to the many treed and ample vineyard grounds it is decreed in my next care that I must haste and see his longed for presence. In the meantime be your wisdom used, that since the sun ascended, the fame will soon be through the town extended of those I here have slain, yourself, got close up to your chamber, see you there repose, cheer'd with your women, and nor look afford without your court, nor any man a word." This said, he arm'd; to arms both son and swain his pow'r commanding, who did entertain his charge with spirit, ope the gates and out, he leading all. And now was hurled about Aurora's ruddy fire, through all whose light Minerva led them through the town from sight. End of the 23rd Book.